Hi, Josh. Welcome to the Move Me Brightly podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Blaine and Tom. It's fall in Atlanta. I'm loving it. I'm loving life.
I have to tell you guys a story. Josh, you may or may not have heard this yet, but on Saturday, I'm frying a turkey. Have you
Great.
heard?
Have you done it before?
No, but I have Keith involved, so a fire should not break out.
Okay. Okay. The key is to measure how much oil before you get it hot. So you like fill the pot half with water and put the frozen bird in there and see how much the water rises, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, I know that's how much oil I need. It's like up to here or up to here. Because the way that everybody burns their house down is they fill the bucket with oil, get it piping hot, put the bird in, it overflows onto the burner, and you have a really beautiful new deck that I would hate to see go up
Yeah.
in flames. So
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. But that's a great tip. Great tip. I wouldn't have known to do that. Um,
yeah,
but anyway, I'm frying a turkey. And the way I got to I'm gonna fry a turkey is it's something that my dad used to do, and I loved it. And we always go to my in-laws for Thanksgiving. And they're very healthy people, which is awesome. But I think if I was like, let's fry the turkey, it would be, frowned
yeah.
upon. So, and
Ah, boo.
I'm like, I'm in the mood to fry a turkey. So I went today and I bought the turkey and I got a 12-pound turkey, which I thought was reasonable and good enough for me to put in the fridge because you got to thaw the turkey. If there's ice in the turkey or you've got a fire. So I'm put the turkey in the car, and then I get a note from Oliver's football coach, and I have to like go very fast over to NYO. And the turkey is in the back, just like
Oh no.
going all over the car. And
Poor
then
guy.
I know. And then I pick up Oliver and we're on the way home, and I get a phone call from a random number, which I usually don't pick up, but I just had like a feeling. Picked it up. They're like, I have your dog. So the dog had gotten out, and we have two dogs, Mango, which is the one he had, and Charlotte, who bites people and is very old. And I was like, if Charlotte has gotten out, we're never going to see her again. And so I was driving as fast as a person could drive. And the poor turkey, really the victim of the situation. Turns
I
out,
am just picturing this turkey wings flailing all over the back of your car.
yeah,
That's like made for like a South Park episode or something.
yeah. Jimmy was like, that's the most Blaine thing I've ever heard. Like I secured the turkey. So,
There you go.
you know,
So did it all work out?
yeah, it all worked out, but I'm like kind of coming down from an adrenaline.
Adrenaline rush of turkey
Well,
slash
really
dog
about the
saving.
dogs. We live
Yeah.
very, very close to a very busy road. And so I have a huge fear about the dogs getting out. And with all the construction going on, someone just left the gate open. So it was like, not, honest mistake, but
Yeah.
You have
the
those,
dogs.
do you have those like Apple tags or whatever on your dogs, on their collars?
It's not an Apple tag, but it did have my phone number, which is why the guy called.
There you
I know
go.
a few people who have dogs who are, constantly on the verge of running away. They put like the air tag thing
Mm-hmm.
on their collar so you can track them if they run away.
Very smart.
Yeah. Something to think about.
Something to think
Yep.
about.
How is the turkey?
Turkey is in fine condition.
I
And
mean,
it's
when
now
they're
in the
frozen, they're
fridge.
like a bowling ball.
I know.
I mean, it's just
Kind
probably
of
pretty
concerned it was going to
indestructible.
hurt the car.
Yeah. I can imagine it would be loud rolling around in the back of your car.
Yeah.
Wait, so you haven't actually fried it up yet?
No, I'm gonna do it on Saturday for the Georgia
This
Florida
Saturday.
game.
Got it. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying this was last Saturday. Okay.
Which, Josh, did Allie tell you that you guys are invited?
Yes, I am going to be at the barn, but I might can come after. I don't know how the timing is going to work on that, but
Love to see you if you're available.
yeah, thank you.
Is
So
the barn your recording space?
No, no, the barn is legit the barn where our my children ride horses.
Oh, very cool.
Josh rents a horse.
I do. I do. I'm a horse owner, I guess you could say, even though I lease it. But yes, we have responsibility and custody of an equestrian animal.
You have stake in a horse.
I do. I do. I have stake in daughters who love him and love to compete on him and that kind of thing. So
Did you ever think you were going to be a horse dad?
no, no. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I grew up like riding horses at camp, and if I went out west, I'd go on a trail ride with those old horses that like know the trail like the back of their hand, and they're like, "Oh, another tourist on my back." Okay, you know, and I loved riding horses. I thought, it's pretty cool to be on an animal that's, I don't know, thousands of pounds, 2,000 pounds. I really don't know, but
Let's
a
call it a
big
ton.
big, huge animal, right? And it's pretty cool, and they seem pretty special. And then I always love the whole allure of the West, whether it was Western movies growing up, or my grandfather reading, Western novels, or now Yellowstone and stuff like that. I mean, I love country music, and I just love the idea of being a horse guy. And so, we were with my oldest, Florrie, we were looking for, what's going to be her thing. And Blaine, in Atlanta, the search for the thing starts early with these kids. If we have time to get into that, we can, but it's like, kids that start playing like super competitive soccer when they're like knee high. And like some of these girls will like run you over, and she was like, "That's not me." And like, so her aunt, my wife's sister, my sister-in-law, had ridden horses growing up. She was like, "Maybe I want to try horses." And I was like, that sounds cute. Let's go put our 6-year-old, 8-year-old on a 8-year-old, I guess. Yeah, on a horse. See what happens. Sounds fun. So we did. And man, she like bonded with the horses and like started really loving it and really getting good. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're becoming a horse family. Next thing I know, her trainer's like, she needs to go show and like compete. And we're like, really? And so I was like, I don't know what we're doing, but here we go. And, Allie was always kind of afraid of horses. Um, and Allie's my wife. And for those of you who don't know Allie, but Allie was always afraid of horses, and they're huge. Why not be a little bit nervous around them? I don't blame her. And so we were like, we're not horse people, but in my mind, I'm like, horse people are cool. I want to be horse people. And then over time, we just kind of learned it, and you buy the gear and you do the things, and all of a sudden you're like, next thing you know, you're, wearing a Stetson and scooping horse poop, but I love it. I love the lessons they learn. And then, as far as having stake, as you said, in a horse, Tom, that happened it's a slippery slope for all of you listening that are considering horses for your children. I will 99% of the time sing the praises of the wonderful things that come with riding horses. However, a warning I will give is this story. And basically, my daughter had been riding what's called a lesson pony. They're older, they're really gentle, pretty much, and like just like it kind of comes with the lesson. You take a lesson, and this is the pony you ride, right? And they're owned by the barn, and you take a lesson. And she's starting to get better and better. And her coach goes, you know, I think I think I want to try you on a different pony today. And I was like, all right, pony's a pony. That one looks good too. Let's try it. And then I watched that session with my daughter, and they connected. And like when she would zig, he would zag, so to speak. Like she would make a mistake and he would change his gait to fix it for her. I mean, it was just this magical thing, and she rode excellently. And it was like, I was like, can we practice on that pony more? And the trainer goes, well, yes, you can. And I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, well, he is up for lease and he is a great pony. And I was like, oh Lord. But I came home and talked to Allie, and I said, I think we're about to really be horse people. So, we slid into that. And the rest is history. For the past year, 2 years, Florrie and now Loula are both competing on Scooter is his name. And Florrie's gotten really good. She wins a lot of the time, and it's pretty fun to watch.
That's awesome.
I know horses are very attuned to human emotions. Like they will shadow how you're feeling. If they sense you're anxious, they'll get anxious. They're very hyper aware of their surroundings.
They're magical. Like when I come away from the barn, I go down there once a week, and they go down there twice a week. Allie takes them during the week so I can work, but I mean, I come out of there even when it's either blistering hot or freezing cold, because you have to ride year round. I mean, the horse needs exercise just like a dog needs a walk or whatever, right? So I just come out of there just light. I love it, you know. Connecting with Scooter and the other horses around. There's lots of horses down there, and we know them all by name, and pet them and take a sack of carrots and feed them, and make sure they're spoiled a little bit, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there is something so calming about being around that animal in particular versus other animals. There's just something about a horse that it's like a combination of their size and their demeanor.
Yeah,
Just really like it puts you in a zen mode.
I agree, and I think I would add that there's two other things I would add. One is it's a wild animal that's been tamed. There's a little bit of element of danger. Like, what if this very kind, attuned horse decided he didn't like me, or decided to rear up or buck or whatever? Like, there's an element of the unknown in that. But the flip side of the coin is the beauty of, I think, these horses realize how powerful they are, and they're essentially gentle on purpose, right? And so there's this beauty and danger in it that I think is really special. And then their eyes. Oh my gosh, it's like a window to the soul. You look in a horse's eyes, and it's just, I don't know, it's captivating. So
They seem wise.
yeah, they seem wise. They do.
Yeah. What do you know about the world that you're not
Yeah,
sharing with us because you can't speak English?
that's right.
So you're in what I assume is your music studio.
My music studio, my office, my
I want to say I see about like
refuge.
15 guitars and bass guitars back there. Would that be an accurate number?
I think That's pretty crazy, by the way, because I think in this room there's 17, but I just put 2 in the closet. That's like the scene in Rain Man where he's like there's 492 matches in there, and the guy's like, nice try, it's a 500 match box, and he was like, there's 8 still in the box, and it's like, no, but there I have 17 stringed instruments. They're guitars, bass guitars, ukulele, mandolins, resonators, all the things. So yeah, I might have a little problem, but I sure love them.
How many guitars does one person need?
This is a great question. And I would ask you, how many songs does one person need? How many, you know, how many flavors of food does one person need? Every single one of those has a different voice, a different attitude, a different sound, a different way that it wants to be played softly or hard or loud or very delicately. And so, I'm not meaning to be you know, a jerk or a smart aleck there, but
I was being a jerk. I was being a
yeah,
jerk.
no,
So I appreciate
they
you.
have guitars have a soul. A lot of guitars have soul. And several of these have lots of stories and lots of memories behind them too, and that makes them incredibly special.
Is
Um,
the you must have a favorite though, like your
oh,
go-to that when you're
100%.
just hanging out, and it's the one on the stand back there, right?
So there's a story there. I'm cool to tell stories, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's a reason that guitar. So that is the guitar I learned to play on. And it's the guitar by which all other guitars are measured. But until recently, it was not mine. That was, do y'all know, and if you know anything about brands of guitars, there's a guitar brand called Martin. They're very well-known guitars. They've been around since pre-World Wars. I mean, they've been around forever. They're one of the top brands. Well, in 1972, the Christmas of 1972, my dad had been really learning guitar, learning to love guitar. He was really into James Taylor. And his parents splurged and bought him a Martin D18. And my dad is a phenomenal guitar player. He just plays in church, and sometimes he plays for friends and little parties and stuff like that, but he's phenomenal. And so anyway, I learned to play on that guitar. I can still remember when I was a little kid, like wanting to play it, and I was beating on it. And he came into the room, and I thought it was dead meat, right? Because this thing was his baby. And like he was so excited, he picked me up and he was like, "You want to learn to play?" And put me in his lap and wrapped me around the guitar, and we played together. And so I mean, I grew up learning to play that guitar, and over time amassed my own collection, and I knew that that guitar would be mine one day. I knew it would be in his will or whatever, but I hope that day is a long way off. But this past Christmas, we had done all the Christmas gifts and everything, and he was like, hang on, I got one more. And he came in with it, and like I'm bawling. I'm like, whoa, no, no, no. Like this is like Excalibur. This is like, I'm like, what is happening here? And he turns and he was like, he is in financial planning, and he helps with retirement planning for people. And he's been doing it so long that now everybody is actually retiring. And so one of the things that he's watched his friends and clients do is things that they thought were going to be, in the will. A trend right now is to give kids these items so that for the rest of their life on earth, they can actually watch their children enjoy them. And so my dad gave me this. And the reason that 1972, Christmas in 1972 was important was because he gave it to me on Christmas of 2022, exactly 50 years later to the day, which is amazing. And I mean, if you look at it, there are dents and dings and it's beat up. I probably put half of those on there when I was a teenager being stupid with a really nice instrument. But there's this line in an Ashley McBride song. It's the song is called Bible in a 44. It's a phenomenal song. He's talking about her daddy. And the last line is it says, people ask me why it sounds so good. And she said, and then the next line is, it's because I'm holding more than strings and wood. And I mean, that sums it up. That's why that guitar has that magnetism towards it, you know. It's not my most expensive or valuable. It's not by a collector wouldn't be, you know, the thing that if they came in here they would want, you know. But it's my most prized possession. You get the kids and my wife out of the house if it's burning, and I'm coming back to get that. The rest can burn as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, that's the story there. But yeah, that's that's my favorite, and that's the reason it's on a stand. You know, I was talking to my dad one day, and we were on Zoom. He's in Jackson, Mississippi, and at that point, it wasn't there. It was not in the picture. And he's like, "Are you gonna hang the Martin behind you?" And I was like, "No way." He's like, "Really? Why not? I thought you displayed your favorites." I was like, "Because it's right here." You know, like it's never gonna be more than a couple arms length away from me. You know what I mean? As pretty as those guitars are up there, they're actually the ones I play the least because they're up there. I grabbed one off the rack or something, you know? So anyway, I could talk about guitars forever though. So
I love that idea of what your dad did, of like not waiting for something they care about and you have a connection with your child to be bequeathed.
yeah, absolutely. I thought it was so cool. And he had a watch that was really special to him too, that my brother always loved, and he gave my brother the watch on Christmas too. And both of us were just like, what is happening? This is amazing, you
Yeah.
know. And such a brilliant gift. And like I was changing the strings today, and like I was looking at that so the pins that hold the bottom of the strings, they have little pearl inlays in them, and the Martin in 1971 came with black pins, with no inlay. And he bought those pearl they're made of ivory with pearloid inlay, and he bought them the day I was born, and so to remember me. And that was, you know, he didn't have much, but he put those in to always remember me. And so, you know, there's just so much in that guitar, you know. And I was changing the strings today, and they're all yellowed and kind of cracked ivory and everything. And like as it goes, you should probably change them out, but I wouldn't dare. You know what I mean? I will, if they break, I'll glue them back together. I'll do whatever I need. Like that's part of the allure of that thing, you know?
How are you not crying talking
I'm
about
almost crying. I'm close.
this?
I'm close.
Yeah.
I'm yeah. So I mean
We
there's
had another guest on here, Derek, who talked about having his first guitar that was a hand-me-down, I think from another relative.
Mhm.
And he held on to it for like 25 years, pride and joy. And like right as we were recording our episode with him, he had just passed it along to another kid in his extended family of like continuing the generation, but I mean, you could tell just by listening to him talk, like there was a real special sentiment behind the guitar and like the years that it has traveled and the people that it has been passed down to throughout the family, you know, like there is definitely that thing that's real.
Yeah. And Derek, and I know Derek very well, and we share a lot of those passions and stories, and he's actually recorded over here some and used a couple of these guitars too. But yeah, and they're special, you know, that they're full of inspiration, they're full of ideas, they're full of, I mean, if you think about it, um those guitars have been with me longer than anything else I own. They've been with me through every heartbreak, every up, every down. Not all of them, but like there's a couple. The Martin, there's one over there for sure. And then, but each one of them marks a time in my life that I could never get rid of them. Like there's this black one that was given to me over there, and it's really cool, but I never play it. But like when I was 20 years old and touring the country and like playing every show I could get my hands on, that was my guitar, man. You know, it was in every picture, it was in every promo shot, it was in everything, right? And like it doesn't suit the music that I play today, but I could never get rid of it, you know. The one exception, you know, if my kids wanted it maybe or something, but
then it's still in the house, and
then it's still in the
Still in the
family, it's still in the
if
house.
they get old enough and they're going to move out and they want to take it, it'll be a sit down conversation of like, how serious are you about this?
Well, yeah, exactly. So
Josh, could you talk a little bit about like what you're currently doing with music in your music career?
yeah. So I am, by the letter of the contract, you know, I'm a signed songwriter, which, you know, they say that's a pro songwriter. Um, you know, songwriting's interesting in that the top micro percentage, you know, make a full living at it, and the rest of us do it because we have to, because it's in us, because we love it, even if we are, you know, under a publishing contract or anything else, you know. Precious few these days get to make a full living at it, but I've been, boy, I mean, I've got stories for days, but so to answer your question, what I'm doing right now is writing songs for other artists. There's a band called the band Loula that is really catching fire right now. And I love it because I love the people in it, but my youngest daughter's also named Loula, which is really cool. I've written several singles for them. The one that's doing really well right now, I wrote for them. And you know, just capturing stories, you know, for the most part, I sit with artists and talk about their life, and there's a few special artists that I get to build relationships with over several years, and help them tell their story, help them package it together in a way that's it sounds like them, but it's cohesive. It's got some elements of, you know, hookiness that would draw a crowd in and things like that, right? And so on my best professional days, I get to sit in a room with somebody I truly love, talk about life, and a song pops out 4 or 5 hours later, you know.
I love that.
Do you ever have any hesitation? Like, are you ever writing a song and you think like, I don't want to give this one away?
Yeah, sometimes. But the good news is over time I've built some relationships that are trusted enough that are more like, I won't give this one away to anybody, but I'll see if that person wants it. You know, I wouldn't trust this one to just anybody, but and you know, songs are interesting. Some of the songs that I've had come out recently, I wrote 3, 4, 5 years ago. and I was attached to him at the time, but I've also learned some lessons that like you'll always write more songs and you can't get too attached. I said no to some things early on because I was like, no, that one's too special, so and so can't have it. And I really missed the boat, and I'm like, now for the most part, I would say 99.9% of my songs are available for the taking. If there's any songwriters out there or artists looking for good material, hit me up, right?
Your info will be in these show notes so they can reach you very
Love
easily.
it. Love
I
it.
asked because I'm listening to this podcast about these two guys who are going through Bruce Springsteen's discography, and
I bet that's awesome.
yeah, it's a great podcast. It's called "Are You Springin' Springsteen on My Bean?"
Wow.
It's Adam Scott, the guy from Severance,
Catchy.
the main actor in Severance, and this comedian Scott Ackerman. But they're going album by album through it, and they were talking about it was during the period of Darkness on the Edge of Town and The River, like that late 70s, early 80s period. And Bruce was just writing like hit after hit after hit. And there were so many songs that he wrote that he would record with the E Street Band that he knew would be really popular, but he would just think like, this sounds more like a Ramones song, so I'm just going to give it to the Ramones
Yeah.
and see if they want it. And he would go through this process of like, I wrote this song and I know it would do well for me, but I think it's more in the style of this artist I really admire. So I want to see if he or she wants it or they want it. And they would either say yes or no. And but that's always been fascinating to me because I feel like as the creator of it, like there's such a bond between you and the work,
Yeah.
because
But
it's coming from your brain and your hard work. And to just release that out into the world and give not only do that, but there is also an acceptance, I would think, of like, you're not only giving this to another artist to perform, but you're also relinquishing the power to do it the way maybe you envisioned
yeah.
when you wrote it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is a hard thing. I think it comes down to your your big why. Why do you create art, right? There is nothing wrong with a person writing songs in their room and putting them in a drawer and writing the next one and never showing them to anybody if that art fulfills them, right? If Blaine, you decided you never want to show another one of your paintings, and you just want to paint because it makes you feel happy, then that's enough, right? However, other artists, Springsteen's one, I'm one. Blaine, I think you're one because I see your art in other people's houses. In fact, I have
Get out.
we have several of your pieces of art in our house. Um,
I have one too.
it is made, so for me, my big why, and every artist has to have their why, but my why is simply to move others that I'll never, or a better way is to impact others that I'll never have a chance to meet face to face. And so to do that, you have to let go of the song, right? It's got to find its way into the world. I'm not going to sing it. I might put out an album here or there that I record right over there because it's just in me and I want to, I'm feeling inspired and there's a pile of songs over here. I'm like, well, I'll make a record. Every 5 or so years I get in that mood. I'm kind of in that mood now. I'm not going on the record saying I'm making a record, but I've been really thinking about it. But it comes down to your why. Why do you create? And for me, um, my big why is to impact others that I'll never meet. And and I think as an artist, you grow in your definition of success. When I was younger, success was number ones and charts and money and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I would love to still find that part of success. Um, but ultimately, it's amazing that I've had people use songs I've written to ask somebody to prom. I've had people use songs in their wedding proposal. I've had people use songs to do all sorts of things. And, artists will, put these songs out there, and then their fans will say, this helped me out of a really hard time, and they'll share it on TikTok or whatever. And it's like, that's success to me now, and so I still have my ultimate measure of success when I know I will have truly made it is we spend a lot of time on a lake house up in North Georgia that my mother-in-law owns, and the day some boat comes cruising by playing a song I wrote, that's it. That's it. And because somebody has chosen to give me share their weekend with me. They've made that choice to be on the lake, on that boat at that time, and they've included me in their decision to be in that moment that they're in. And so I really, I want that to happen one day. For the record, it's never happened, but I do see lots of that kind of stuff on TikTok all the time. Many of the artists I write with have millions of followers, and people do crazy stuff to our songs all the time. And it's really fun to watch.
I watched a documentary on Dolly Parton, who I love. And
You have to keep a running list, by the way, of all the music documentaries that you mention on this podcast.
I've already mentioned this one, so double check.
Okay.
But I was so struck how she was like, songs just pour out of me all the time. And she was like, they're worthless to me. She kept calling them like little songs or like
little songs.
Well,
yeah.
I just wrote this little song. She was talking about writing 9 to 5. And she's like, I just came up with this little, and you're like, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, like that, like what? Or like Jolene, she just was like, like whatever. And I was so struck by, and I feel this so much in my own work, that it's the creating that's like a salve for me or whatever. That's the reward, the like magic of the creating. And then once it's created, I no longer really, I
that's interesting. Yeah, I think, and that gets back to why artists do what they do, right? You do it because it's a salve for you, and then you don't need it, so you get it kind of out of your house, right? But you've created this beautiful thing that can inspire, encourage, move somebody else. And so just as almost a part of contributing, or maybe even for you it's like closing the door on that piece of art, you find it a home, right? And it's not necessarily about, like, art doesn't, even for people who professionally make art and make money with their art, for most it's not about that. That's just a byproduct of a bigger why. Why they make art, right? And if you're only doing it for the money, find another job, because you'll be poor your whole life, and you got to be fulfilled in life.
Yeah. I also I think if I kept every painting I'd made since I was a child,
oh my God,
to like move out,
can you imagine?
Just be paintings, or if you kept all your songs, there's almost a cleansing in sending it out into the world. It's almost like purging your closet or something. Like there's a release, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a finality to it, in that it then opens the door for a new creation. And so in order to create, it's almost like in order for something to grow, something has to die. And not trying to be like morbid, but it's like out with the old, in with the new, whatever, little pithy thing you want to say. But I think you're right, because like I started working on a song today, and it's going to haunt me till I'm done with it. But once I'm done with it, once I'm really, really done with it, and I turn it into my publisher and it's off and it's whatever, I really don't think about it too much, unless, you know, it comes back around and somebody's, you know, inquiring about it or something, you know, and because you just gotta be in that rhythm of creation and, you know what fulfills you. But we're very different. It sounds like Blaine in a way. Like I do love the act of creation, but I love the act of seeing my creation impact others. Like I love that, and not in a praise of me. Most people have no idea I wrote it. In my entire career, I can show you 1,000 examples of how I'm sort of the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain thing. And I love that, right? I don't want the spotlight, but I want to be pulling the strings and I want to be helping people have a good time or, you know, heal a heartbreak or, you know, something like that. And so yeah, it's just, yeah, that's art, right?
I feel like that's the best of both worlds. Like you go out to a restaurant, you hear a song that you wrote
Yeah,
and it comes on, but no one's gonna come mob your table
that's
and
right.
bother
I'm
you.
just,
Like you still get to eat in anonymity. Like it's
yeah,
the best.
yeah. And there's some songs that, you know, maybe that could happen, you know, because some of these artists that I've been working with for years, there's cool stuff happening. You just never know. And that's the other thing is just understanding, you know, um, how art, like songs especially, gosh, what is the name of that? Have you read Big Magic, either of you? You know, it talks about book ideas or floating through the air. It happens all the time in Nashville where, you know, three different songs will come in to the publisher with same or similar titles that have never been heard from in all of creation. And then next thing you know, like three of them within a couple of days come in with that kind of theme. And it's like, what in the world is going on? But that really happens quite often, and it's spiritual. It's really magical. You know, you were talking about Dolly. I have a slight humble brag. So 2 weeks ago, I was invited into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame induction gala. So it's this black tie gala, and Dolly was there. And so she was there because Keith Urban was getting inducted. And so, I mean, I was pinching myself all night because I was like 30 feet from Nicole Kidman the whole night. And I was like, what? You know, who am I to be in this room? But it was awesome. And then Dolly just, I mean, it was amazing because like I think it was definitely Keith Urban, but it was either Kix Brooks or Eric Church. I can't, but both of them just got on their knees and they're like, "We're not worthy," you know, and it was hilarious. Everybody in that room respects her little songs so
Yeah.
much. You know, when you get inducted in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, you get to pick another Hall of Famer to induct you. And Keith Urban chose Dolly,
I
and
love that.
it was pretty awesome.
I
I
love
mean,
that. I
Dolly
just heard
might be our greatest living American.
Yeah,
Like
I agree. I agree.
she's
Um,
in the running.
have y'all listened to her new rock and roll album yet? I haven't because I don't know how I feel about it, but I love that, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wanted to induct her into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she said no, and they said yes, and she said no, and they finally said yes, and she said, "Well, fine, I'm at least gonna go make a rock record." And like she partnered with like people from Heart and like did a lot of rock and roll covers. I have not listened to it. I'm sorry, Dolly, if you're hearing this. I will go listen tomorrow. But it's interesting. She was like, "Well, fine, I'm gonna earn it." Like she was like at her age, she doesn't have to prove anything. And she's like, I will not accept an honorary induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm at least going to put out a rock record. And I was like, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
good for her.
She's gonna put that one out and then say, now you guys have to wait 20 years and then you can induct me. So it's all
Yeah. No, they're doing it this year. I mean, they basically said, you don't have to approve. You don't have to come. We're doing it.
yeah.
You know, I guess,
And
guess
they've
there's
had like rap artists in there and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's more of a music hall of fame
yeah.
now. It's not really truly rock and roll. only. Because their point, and I believe it's a good one, is rock and roll is really just influenced by pop culture. And so, you have mixes of rock and rap and pop and country and all of those things, and that's what makes American music great, and music in general great.
Yeah. And I think that the idea of that Hall of Fame was created at a time when rock and roll was by far the most predominant style of music
Yeah,
in mainstream America. And hip hop didn't exist back
yeah,
then,
yeah, exactly.
or ska, all the ska artists that are being inducted into the rock and roll.
There you go. Yeah.
Get Sublime in there, guys. That's all I'm saying. Throw Sublime in the posthumous award for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That would get my full vote.
There you go.
Well, Tom, it's coming to the time when you need to ask Josh the question.
Yeah.
Another question.
So on this podcast, we always ask a question. Fuck, marry, kill me, Blaine, Derek. No. So the premise of this podcast is basically to interview other creative people like Blaine and myself who have been able to monetize, make some sort of a career on the thing that they love to do before a career was even like a thought in their head, right? Like you mentioned your dad was teaching you guitar at a very young age. It seems like you were drawn to it at a very early age. So having succeeded in a lot of ways in doing that, how has that affected your relationship with making music, with writing music, turning it into more of a job? Is there any type of burnout that you experience going through this? Have you lost any love of music or even just listening to music? Like, do you go through a long week of writing and recording and the last thing you want to do is chill out on the couch and put on a new album you haven't heard before? And if you do experience any of those things, what's kind of your process to keep the love of the game going?
What a great and deep question. Boy. Yes. So first and foremost, I definitely experience burnout. It's usually when I am tasked with writing with people I don't know and it doesn't go so well. Where, maybe they're not telling me, they're not sharing anything with me, so we're just making stuff up and it's meaningless to me and it's meaningless to them. And it's just like, it's almost like, okay, we just got to finish this song and get out of this room. I try to avoid that stuff like the plague. And back to the big why, it's not going to move anyone, right? Because it's never going to see the light of day. And I just don't connect with the person in the room, and therefore the art is going to suffer. And I've learned over the years that in that situation, there's not a dang thing I can do but finish the song and get out of there. There some really hit songwriters won't even finish the song because they won't put their name on it. They won't put their name on it. They know it's not up to par with their name. And usually I'm set up by another publisher or record label or something like that, and so there is a political aspect of it. And I will, even if the song's going in the toilet, I have to preserve that political aspect a little bit because they might have another artist that I click really well with, right? And or the music industry is small. You just don't burn bridges. So that's pretty soul sucking. But then
wait, I have a question. Do those people, is it kind of a universal problem with those people, or do they then end up clicking with a different songwriter?
Some of both. That's a great question. So some of both. It's often that oftentimes an artist, a new artist or something, has been writing with their clique for a while, right? And they have found success and they found their sound or whatever, and then they get signed and they get management and labels around them, And the management and labels want to see, well, what else can we do with this person? And so they start setting up these kind of blind dates, right? And usually that person has a crew, and they are not into writing with anybody outside their crew. They're doing it because their manager told them to, right? And my job is to try to break through that, but it's really hard. And your referral sources become really important. And so as I've gotten more, um, I guess, established as a writer, um, I won't take every write, or I'll ask some questions of a new write, like, what are they into? Who else are they writing with? Have they heard anything that I've done? Like trying to figure that out. And I'll also do a little bit of, Instagram stalking, although that's so fake these days, or can be, that they look like a really bubbly person. I'll never forget. I was having a lot of success with this producer and with one female artist, and so this other female artist was actually had a bigger record deal, and everybody's really excited about her, and they asked us to write with her, and we felt like totally um very honored. And like, she came in and she sat there like this the whole time. And I was like, well, what's going on in your life? What have you been writing about? What's, couldn't get anything out of her. And then it turned out that she ended up having a number one not too long after that with her producer. And like, basically, when her record came out, she and her producer had written the whole thing, which I fully support, by the way. Like, I think that's awesome. They found a vibe, and it's good vibe. But I should have never been brought in. Whoever the manager that brought me or anybody else in should have known that what's special about this is that producer artist relationship, and don't bust it up, right? And so, there's about four artists that I have that kind of bond with, that I'm really proud of, that I love. And then a couple of producers that I just love spending time with, and we make crazy creative stuff. And then everything else right now, I'm pretty careful with what I accept from like new rights. That's, um, not always good. I need to be probably a little more open-minded, if I'm being honest. But it's self-protection right now. I went through a phase, like you said, Tom, do you ever get burned out? I was like, man, I've had too many of these soul-sucking rights that go nowhere. And I write stuff that I know is junk, and I turn it in and it's junk. And it's just like, I don't want to do that, right? I'd rather write something like what I do with the band Loula. If anybody goes out and listens to that against any of my other songs, like, it is so unique, and it's so fascinating, and it's so artistic, and it's catching fire because it's so freaking real. Like, I want to chase that stuff, right? I want to chase the stuff that, like, if it moves me that deeply, then I know it's going to move somebody, right? And so, yeah, but you ask, what do I do when I get burned out, right? Um, if I recognize it, I take a very intentional break. I might not write for 2 weeks. Funny, that's when all the great titles will come. So I've always got a notebook around, or I'm singing into my phone or something, but I'm like, nope, not gonna write it. Not gonna write it. It's just make myself. And then, if it's just on a day, I'll take a walk, I'll connect with nature. I try to be really intentional about my day, otherwise too. And I sometimes when I get burned out, it's not about the work, but it's about all the stuff that I've allowed to surround the work, whether it's stress, or, I try to start my day every day the same way. I read the Bible. I journal for 5 minutes, which doesn't seem long, but I have this amazing journal. It's a 5-year journal, and you have to write 4 lines a day, and that's it. But on every page, it's got 5 places for those 4 lines. So every year you get to see the 4 lines you wrote a year ago, right? And so you see the growth in this one book. It's fascinating to me. I'm in my first year of it, but I love it. And so I try to write down my thoughts and get clarity on that. And then I read. I'm in my working my second time through of Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, which is just fascinating, and for any creative listening right now, that book has to be a vital part of your process. Like it's the best book on creativity I've ever read. So rereading that, and I just step away from it. It actually talks about stepping away from it. In fact, I was reading just the other day. It's right here. But the chapter was on distraction, and I loved a quote. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Distraction is not procrastination. Procrastination consistently undermines our ability to make things. Distraction is a strategy in service of the work. And so, it talks about like, just go do something else. Do something. I've recently gotten into cycling. I'll go take a bike ride, and or even if I'm stuck on a song, I'll go take a bike ride, take a walk, and I'll come back and I'll just slay it in like 15 minutes when I get back, just because I took a break and like let my brain just sort of reset, So
You and Derek and cycling things taken off. My friend Matt.
Oh man, Derek and I rode 121 miles together on Saturday. Like
Wow.
craziness. Something I love as creatives, I love setting my mind on a goal that seems insane and then actually doing it, and working for it, right? And so whether it's cycling now or music or, anything, I think to be a creative, you have to be a little bit crazy. Because and I mean, I think that's a good thing for what it's worth, but I think you have to be a little bit crazy because it's not normal in our society, right? It's countercultural in a lot of ways to express yourself and wear your heart on your sleeve and try to, create something out of nothing, right? And so you've got to be a little bit crazy. And then if you choose to put your work out for scrutiny, put it out in the public, which is a very personal choice for every artist and every creative. But if you choose to, you've then subjected yourself to very opinion-based feedback. Who's to say if art is good? There's a guy that, finds normal artifacts and like sticks them he found an old rusty shovel and stuck it in the ground and he called it art. And who am I to not say that's art? But it's art to him, it's where that art and commerce meet that people really start to, well, what's it worth? Well, if you're talking about money, it's worth whatever somebody will pay for it, right? But if it's worth their soul to express themselves on a canvas or in a song, then it's worth the world. And so you just have to be a little bit off. And I'm proud to be a little bit off.
Yeah, you mentioned the countercultural side of it, and I think that's true, especially in America. Like in other countries, there's tons of government funding and grants given to artists. Like whenever I watch a foreign film and I see like in support with the Irish Film Fund, and I'm like, God, that would be so nice
awesome.
that existed out here. The other thing I wanted to bring up in your answer, which I think is great because it's something that I don't think we've touched on too much so far in this podcast, is the political side. And I think that's probably the most underdiscussed thing in this podcast about what can lead to creative burnout, because you start just doing this thing like playing guitar in your bedroom or something as a kid, and it's just for you and it's fun. You play for friends at a party, whatever. But then you get into the business side of it and you are dealing with that. And I know for me on the film side of things,
Yeah.
that's such a huge part that can lead to burnout. Is I'll be on a project where the person sucks that I'm involved with, or the project sucks, but I do it because I have this other relationship and I
Yep.
want to be able to maintain that. And so you're almost like biting the bullet on this one to continue progressing your relationship with these other people forward. And that can sometimes just be such uh short term fine move, but long term it can be like really disastrous, because it can totally psych you out and make you think you've like lost some love of the thing you're doing, when in reality
Yeah.
it's more situational effect.
I think perspective and people that you can talk to about it that know, I think there's a reason that creatives tend to um congregate together. If you think about it, there's three creative coasts in the US. There's New York, LA, and Nashville, right? And then Austin is kind of the keep Austin weird and funky, but it's, we love that too. And every major city has an arts district or whatever. You know, I think that, they say that misery loves company. I mean, I think artistic expression um is magnetic, and people who um thrive in and around the arts, whether or not they make a living at it or they appreciate it, they flock to these areas. And so I think you find solace in community of artists. You need to have somewhere you can go and say, man, this day sucked, and somebody else can say, yeah, but you were writing because so and so asked you to, and that's pretty awesome. There's a million people in this that would take your place any day, right?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to get that perspective. And it's easy. I had a really great day today, so it's easy for me to say that. But like, if you caught me on a bad day, I'd be like, oh, I mean, look, because we're artists, because we're a little bit off, as I said, we're up and down, right? And so I think that we need community of artists. I also think we need a community of non-artists. Um, I'm married to um, a wonderful woman who is not a musician. She doesn't understand music. She loves music. She supports music. She enjoys going to the theater. We have our children in piano. She has a pretty voice, but she's not a musician. She doesn't understand what it means to bleed onto the page. And forever, it was so hard for me to come in and be like, um, listen to this amazing song. And she'd be like, meh, that's cool, you know? And it was so hard. And then, I realized that um, that's actually a gift, because for a couple of reasons. One, gosh, if I was in that hyper emotional artistic state all the time, I think I would just drive my own self crazy. And so she's very much a balance for me. And then I do know when I have something really great and I tell her and I show her and she's like, that's great, then it's like a super high bar, because like
She's the
she
audience
doesn't.
conduit for you.
Right,
Yeah.
right, because she doesn't. When you watch a movie, Tom, or when you see a painting, Blaine, you don't just see a painting. You see the artist mind, you see the director's mind, you see the writers. You are I guarantee you, Tom, this is the first time I've met you. I've known you a long time, Blaine, but you analyze the art. I can't just listen to a new song. I am breaking down the lyrics. I'm breaking down the production. I'm listening to it. In fact, when there's something I'm really excited about, I wait and I listen to it here in a pristine listening environment. You know, that's not normal. Like, it's not normal. And so, it's I think it's healthy to remember that that's not normal, but also to have the balance of yeah, but I freaking love it. It's a drug to me, and just have it be that way. And so I think there's balance. So I think there's community of like-minded people, but I think it's really healthy to be in a balance of other people that expose you to things that are not music and, balance you out.
Like horses.
Like horses. That's right.
Full circle. Full circle.
Full circle. Well done, Blaine. Well done. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah,
That was awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I referred to this book again, but The Creative Act was the original title, and he added a colon and said a way of being, to that title. And it really talks a lot about being a creative is a way of looking at the world through a different lens. And sometimes that's, colored by our situations or the things around us, but creatives are emotional beings, and I think they make this world a better place because they see it differently. And there's so much hope in creativity, and there's creativity leads to problem solving, and it leads to all sorts of wonderful things that, this world needs. And so I think creative is not a doing, it's a being, if that makes sense.
And I actually want to go back. I know we're wrapping up, but earlier you had mentioned kind of like what your purpose is as an artist, what you hope to get out of it. And that made me think I have this theory about, especially, podcasts is probably like the biggest new mainstream artistic platform that's come out in the last few years. And I know during COVID, I have heard so many stories from artists, comedians, actors, whatever, who kept getting over and over messages from people saying you putting stuff out during this period saved my life. It made things bearable for me. And I really think, to go back specifically to my industry, we had the writers' strike that just ended. We have the actors' strike that's still going on. And I remember 15 years ago when the strikes were happening, and the general consensus was these rich fucks are complaining for more money. Are you serious? Get back to work. And now the public opinion seems to be much more swayed towards the artists.
Yeah.
And offering, they should get what they're worth and what their value is. And I really think there has been, on some level, maybe just a minor shift, but a cultural shift in kind of understanding the value that people bring, other than the old school thought of oh, you're an artist, you just like to play pretend.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I hope that's true of all art. I do see that in visual media, film and TV, because we consume so much of it. There's art right there, and it's beautiful. And I think a lot of times we as songwriters feel like songs are very much commoditized, right? They're the 25-second clip you hear in the back of a TikTok, and it's here today, gone tomorrow. And there's a lot of conversation amongst songwriters about, well, if we're writing art, if we're making art for commerce, do we make these, I can sit down at my keyboard and crank out 10 of those 25-second, they're jingles, for lack of a better word. They're jingles by a different name. And I might have a better shot at making money doing that. And there are some artists that say, yep, I'm 100% going to do that. And but it's going to support or float my other art. So it's my day job, right? And I can make it without letting it suck my soul out. Good for them. I can't do that personally. I'd rather work a job that has nothing to do with music, so that when I make music, I don't have the pressure of having to put food on the table with every single song, right? And then I can be in service of the art and the purpose of the art and the my purpose, so my big why is to impact others that I'll never meet, and my personal life mission is to be a light. Just be a light. Just be something that brings hope and good into the world. And then the rays of that light, one of my major rays is music, right? And so I personally try to avoid the putting myself in a position to where I have to make art to make a living, and then the art, and for me personally, gets better. Others, they get really good by making disposable art that makes them a living, and they actually have figured out a way to practice their craft. I know a ton of producers that make just pithy little things, but what they're actually doing is really learning their craft as a producer. And when they get to make art, it's like, man, I learned this on this stupid little jingle, but watch this. And you're like, mind blown, right? And so, an artist's path and way of being is just, it's so individual, right? It can be whatever it needs to be. I would just encourage anybody listening to be really tuned in to what it actually needs to be to feed your soul and to further your purpose. And if you can make stuff you don't believe in, and it makes money and you're happy doing it, man, do it. More power to you. If not, figure out how to do it in a way that feeds your soul, you know? Yeah.
So let's end with this. You mentioned wanting to be a light for others, to impact people's lives that you've never met. Give us the song title and the artist of one song that you've written that you want everybody listening to pull up.
So I will say it's definitely today. It is the band Loula, and it's called A Little at a Time. I really think this band is incredibly special. There's some kind of interesting mix between like the Civil Wars and Fleetwood Mac, and it's just awesome.
I should have worn my Fleetwood Mac Rumors t-shirt.
You will listen to this, and I mean, we were like, when they hit that note, like there's this moment when the chorus hits and goes, "Ooh, when the levee breaks," and they harmonize together, and it's like, holy cow, that's so Fleetwood Mac and so cool. Let's lean into that, right? Like, it was just this revelation. I'll never forget. We had been in this room at Universal Music Publishing for hours trying to figure out. We knew we had something, but we tried it from all different angles. I mean, that's the thing, is like, you don't write a song sequentially, right? You're trying all different angles and trying to, manipulate it like clay. And all we had was the first verse. We were trying to figure out how to get from where the first verse ended to where we knew the chorus was going to end, and there was this gap there, right? And I'll never forget, I had to go to the restroom, and I was like, I walked 2 doors down, and it hit me, and I burst back in the room. I go, what if it goes, ooh, everybody breaks. And they're like, that's amazing. I was like, sweet, I gotta pee. I'll be right back. And then I came back not 2 minutes later, and they were on to another role. And it's just creativity, lightning strikes like that. And with this band, they're originally from Georgia. They're named after the small town Loula, Georgia, and in North Georgia, and they've now moved to Nashville. They've signed a big publishing deal, and they've got a big time manager, and like I'm just so excited for them. And so if everybody that's listening listens to a little at a time, and please, if you don't tell anybody about the song, that's fine. Tell at least one person about the band, because they're going to be around for a while, and I'm really excited.
We will have Lincoln throw the exact link to that song in the
Awesome.
notes. So if you're listening, you just scroll down, click it. It'll open up on Spotify or Apple Music for you,
Yes.
and you'll have a great 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really special. It's left of center, but it's well, you'll just have to listen. You know, like we said, art is in the eyes or the ears of the one experiencing it. So you might like it, you might not. We're really proud of it, and so thanks for giving it a shot.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Josh, so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
It was a joy to talk to you. You have very good perspective and insight. This was, I think, really entertaining, but also informative for people who are listening.
Totally.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much. I was so glad to do it, and it's been really fun. I could talk about creativity and tell stories all day long. So in case you can't tell, but
we'll have you back for an alumni reunion special.
sounds good. Sounds good. Can we do it live from Blaine's awesome porch?
Yeah. We'll invite Derek too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll ride our bikes over.
Gonna cycle over. That's how.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank y'all. Have an awesome rest of your evening or morning or whenever y'all are listening to this thing. So thanks for having me.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye, y'all.